Jeffrey Pepper Rodgers here with a lesson on simple percussive techniques. You know, the acoustic guitar is a naturally percussive instrument, as you can hear in all kinds of music from blues and rock to Celtic and country. The guitar's percussive qualities come through even when you're just strumming chords. The sound of a pick striking metal strings is a kind of a percussion instrument in itself. But if you pay more attention to the percussive aspects of your playing, particularly to string muting and pick technique, you can turn your guitar into a full-fledged rhythm section. Drums, bass, and chords all rolled into one. So in this lesson, we're going to take a look at some basic percussive techniques that can really add a lot of power to your guitar grooves, whether you're playing accompaniment or jamming with other people. So let's get started. One way to think about percussive techniques is that your guitar is filling the roles of a drummer's kick and snare. In a straight-up 4/4 country groove, for instance, the drummer would hit the kick drum on beats 1 and 3 along with the bass, and then hit the snare on beats 2 and 4, also called the backbeats. You can hear this type of alternating pattern in the classic boom-chuck rhythm on the guitar. The bass notes, the booms, are on beats 1 and 3, and the chord strums are on beats 2 and 4. Here's an example on a G chord. Play this using all downstrokes with the pick. 1, 2, 3, 4. Got the bass notes on 1, 3, 1, 3. And the strums on 2, 4, 2, 4. So let's take this boom chuck pattern and start accentuating the percussion more. First we're going to switch over to a bar chord G here at the 3rd fret and play essentially the same pattern as the first example, letting each bass note and chord ring for its full quarter note duration. Like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now play the bass notes as you did in the last example, but on the chord strums, right after you strum the chord, loosen the grip of your fretting hand so that you cut off the ringing of the strings. And you get a more percussive sound that way. You'll hear the rhythm start to pop more. 1, 2, 3, 4. Be sure to keep your fingers in that G bar chord position even when you're muting the strings, so it's easy to press down and sound the chord again. Now try loosening your grip on the chord even more quickly so that you get a snare-like sound with very little pitch. Generally, you'll get a better percussive chop by aiming your pick at the wound strings, the bass strings, rather than at the trebles. 1, 2, 3, 4. Muting is easy with a bar chord because you're fretting all the strings. So as soon as you loosen your grip on the chord, you've muted all the strings. But of course, you often want to play chords with open strings, which require a little bit more finesse to mute. So here's an example. It starts on a C chord with the first string muted. Holding down a regular C, but I'm just going to lean first finger against the first string to mute it. To create a percussive chop on that C chord, loosen the fretting hand fingers as we were doing in the last example, while also flattening out the middle and ring fingers so that they touch that open third string and mute that as well. To get the alternating bass on the C chord, move your ring finger from the 5th string down to the 6th string and back again. This motion also tightens up the bass line because as soon as you move finger from one string to the other, it mutes the previous string, so the notes don't overlap at all. We're going to go from a C down to a G chord, and on that G, we've got 3 open strings in the middle. But flatten out your ring and middle fingers to mute those. So it can stop that G chord from ringing. The feel of this example might remind you of Hank Williams' Jambalaya. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's another alternating bass percussive pattern, similar to what's used in Miranda Lambert's hit, Mama's Broken Heart. It uses an E minor and a B minor. So the B minor is all fretted notes, so that's an easy one to mute. But the E minor presents a little twist because it has a lot of open strings and an open bass string. We don't want to let that low E ring. Controlling the duration of bass notes is also an important part of creating strong grooves. So to mute the strings on a fingering like this, on an E minor, lay your ring finger down across all 6 strings while still holding down the E minor position with index and middle fingers. You can use a similar technique to mute any chord that has an open string in the bass. So in standard tuning, that would mean any form of E, A, or D. 1, 2, 3, 4. So far we've been using alternating bass and strumming patterns. You can also incorporate percussion into a straight strumming pattern to increase its groove factor. For instance, here's a simple strum pattern with no muting. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I'll play the same pattern but with percussive strums on beats 2 and 4. To mute the strings for the percussive strums, loosen your grip on the G chord and lay your fretting hand, ring, and middle fingers across the open strings. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's develop this strumming percussion idea a little further. Here's an example reminiscent of the Grateful Dead's Bertha. We're still in G. We're going to add in a quick C over G chord. To play that, leave your fingers in the G position, but add in your index and middle fingers on the 2nd and 4th strings. First, here's a version with no muting. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let's play this pattern with percussive strums on beats 2 and 4. Also, the last strum of the first measure, the C over G chord, is cut short rather than ringing into the next measure. The addition of the percussion makes this rhythm much more satisfying. It sounds like a real groove now. 1, 2, 3, 4.